Welcome in. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for streaming along here with us on your Thursday afternoon. It is great to see you here at 2 o'clock. We've got a lot of news to cover today, as you might expect, and one of our stories involves an ongoing murder trial in Coweta County. We know that this involves the death and disappearance of missing Coweta County mom Tiffany Foster. To this date, investigators still have not found her body, but testimony is underway in that trial. Doug Evans has been covering this story truly since the beginning. Doug, it is great to see you. We were chatting just a little bit before we went on. You were letting me know that Tiffany's mother actually was testifying. So catch us up on what's happened so far.
That's right, Ariel. A lot has happened since we talked yesterday on Fox Local. Let's go ahead and roll the video. We did hear from Tiffany Foster's mother, and so did the jury. She's Katrina Hill, and she's played an active role in the hunt for her daughter since March of 2021. She had a couple of important points to tell the jury. First of all, it has to do with the November 2020 abduction of Tiffany Foster, in which her fiance Reginald Robertson is also charged with. He's charged with kidnapping and aggravated assault. Now, she says that Reggie told her that he took Tiffany to an abandoned house here in Coweta County, tied her up with zip ties, blindfolded her, and fired a gun. Now, a detective also testified that they found that abandoned house on Lower Fayetteville Road in Coweta County. It was confirmed by cell phone activity from Tiffany Foster's cell phone because she had accidentally or on purpose maybe dialed 911. Regardless, she didn't know that the call had connected, but she's heard on that call screaming, "Reggie, you're scaring me. Reggie, you have a gun." It then went dead, the line did. Now, the detective said they found zip ties, they found a shell casing, and they found a bullet hole in the ceiling, and they showed the jury pictures of all of that from this abandoned house. And then a Noonan police officer testified about pulling Tiffany's car over that night. This is after the abduction, allegedly. And in the cars, Reginald Robertson is driving. The officer said he's calm, he's cooperative, but in the front seat, in the passenger seat, is Tiffany Foster, and she's very upset. She's hysterically crying, and she won't answer any of the police officers' questions. They repeatedly ask, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Very gently trying to get information out of her. She's just so distraught, and she says, "I can't tell you because he'll kill me." We also heard from a friend of Tiffany's, a friend that lived in Texas, someone she was supposed to visit in March, but of course never made that flight. She testified in the weeks before the disappearance, Tiffany had texted her repeatedly that she had planned on leaving Reginald Robertson. That friend is also the one who received one of the last text messages from Tiffany that friend got, saying, "If something happens to me, Reggie did it," in all caps. And so today that testimony continued with the children of Tiffany Foster, one of whom, a teenage daughter, received one of the last text messages from Tiffany Foster's cell phone. They showed it to the jury. It simply said, and it was dated March 1st, the day of her disappearance, just afternoon, and it simply said, "I'm going out. Let me know if you need anything." But here's the deal. Did Tiffany Foster send that message, or did somebody else send that message from her phone? And the reason that I say that is that police and the prosecutors say there's no evidence that anyone saw Tiffany Foster on the day that she is said to have disappeared on March 1st. Only one person, Ariel, said that he saw her. Guess who that is? I'm going to let you guess.
Reginald Robertson?
"I saw her." Reginald Robertson said, "I saw Tiffany. She was leaving in her car. She left in her car and she never came back." And that was recorded on body cam video on March 2nd when officers were called to the couple's apartment by the teenage daughter who's worried about her mother. And they respond, Reginald is seen on that video, and he says, I saw her yesterday. She left in her car. And they said, well, where's her car? And he said, with her. Okay? That's important. You know why that's important? Because there's surveillance video from later on March 1st in the evening of him in Tiffany's car.
Right.
Withdrawing money from her ATM, with her ATM card, and then going to a hardware store and buying a shovel. So they believe, and they said that in their opening arguments, Ariel, that was a lie. When he said she left with her car, she's got the car, they're saying that he lied about that.
So, Doug, I've been taking so many notes throughout what you've been telling me. The first thing I think I have to say is just how sad the situation is, especially considering Tiffany had children and the fact that the children were involved, her teenage daughter calling 911. No child should ever have to face that. I'd like for you, if you can, very, big picture here for those who are streaming along with us, distill the timeline down. So, we understand that November 2020, that 911 call is placed where she says, Reggie, you have a gun. And then in March 2021, we understand she goes missing. Just give us the big picture of the timeline for context.
Okay, great question. So let's take you back to November 13th, 2020. Right? It's a few months before the disappearance. There is this alleged abduction where she's tied up in an abandoned house. He fires a shot allegedly and threatens her life. And there's a cell phone record of that. She calls 911. It dials. The dispatcher says, Coweta County 911, what's your emergency? She doesn't hear that, apparently. She's screaming or heard screaming. So that's November 2020. That same night, later that same night, actually the early morning hours of November 14th, there's a body camera video of her in the front seat of the car when they got pulled over, and she's hysterical and everything. And then that's when she says, I can't tell you because he'll kill me. So that's a few months before the disappearance. All right, so then let's fast forward to February, like a week before the disappearance. On February 25th, she texts her friend, and I showed you the picture there, it was toward the end of our video, texts her friend, if something ever happens to me, Reggie did it. But there were previous text messages in and around that one in which she says, I'm leaving him. I plan to leave him. I plan to start my life all over again. They texted back and forth about her possibly going to Dubai because she was in nursing school and she wanted to set up a nursing career overseas, and she was not taking Reggie with her. So that was going on. And then there's the March 1st text to her daughter, hey, I'm leaving, I'm going out, do you need anything? And then that is supposedly the last message sent on her phone. There was one previous one, Ariel, and it's an important one. It's like within the 24-hour period that she disappears, right?
Right.
She texts her daughter, she's out having dinner with a friend. She texts her daughter and says, let me know when Reggie leaves the apartment. So she didn't want to come home and find him there.
Right.
And then there's that one. So then on March 2nd, the day after she's said to disappear, that's when the teenage daughter calls 911 to report her missing. That's when investigators show up and everything, start talking to the family. Katrina Hill, the mother, also arrived on the scene there at the apartment. They talked to her. They talked to the teenage daughter, and then they talked to Reginald Robertson as well. And there's one other person that I want to mention to you, Ariel, and we haven't talked about him a whole lot, and that's Jeremy Walker. He's the second co-defendant in this case. Yeah. He's charged with concealing her death. We're starting to hear now testimony that draws him into the case, because it had all been about Reginald Robertson until until Katrina Hill took the stand. And Katrina Hill, the mother, said that she went over to Walker's apartment because they were neighbors of Tiffany and Reginald. She went over to the apartment and asked her, "Where's Tiffany?" And Walker said to her something along the lines of, "Tiffany is not with us anymore. Tiffany is not coming back."
Very interesting choice of words.
Yes. And also consider that he's the same guy who appears on surveillance video at the hardware store.
Got it.
Well, let me take that back. He's the same guy who's in the car with Reginald Robertson when they're withdrawing, in Tiffany's car, when they're withdrawing money out of an ATM on March 1st. Then going to a hardware store, he's on Home Depot surveillance video with Reginald Robertson when they're buying these odd tools. Well, not so odd, shovel, bolt cutter, but you put it into the context of the disappearance of someone, then maybe they don't seem so odd, right?
Yeah. You know, Doug, it's this is going to be interesting to watch unfold. We have about 30 seconds here. So in the remaining 30 seconds to give a big picture, both sides here. I know yesterday we said the defense said all of this evidence does not directly tie Reginald Robertson. Can you give me, to be fair to both sides, in about 20 seconds, just kind of the overview of what the defense is still saying?
Yeah, we haven't heard from the defense yet because we're still in the prosecution stage. But in their opening arguments, they said test after test after test, no evidence tying Reginald Robertson to a crime. As for Jeremy Walker, his lawyer has said in his opening arguments, hey, yeah, they were neighbors. He asked them for some help. This was a guy who worked on Tiffany's car and things. He was a friendly neighbor, and Reggie needed some help. He didn't know a crime was committed. He didn't know that something had happened to Tiffany. And so we've yet to hear then kind of their alibis and what they say happened and that sort of thing. So there is a second side. Right. We're just not there yet in this trial.
Got it. Doug, thank you so much. I always appreciate our conversations. This is going to be an interesting trial as it unfolds for sure in Coweta County. Absolutely. Going to stay tuned to you to bring us the latest. So I appreciate your time and joining us this afternoon. Thanks, Doug. Okay, guys, so a big story that we actually have been following here in our newsroom involves a sports betting ring. More than 30 people charged in a sweeping indictment, 2 actually. This morning, we know that FBI Director Kash Patel, as well as an attorney there in the Eastern District of New York, talked a little bit about this illegal sports betting and illegal gambling ring. So I'm going to take you through what happened, because they say this illegal fraud scheme involved Portland Trailblazers head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier. They were among the more than 30 people charged in this. They are charged with allegedly participating in illegal sports betting and rigged poker games. We see them walking out for the news conference earlier this morning with the multiple indictments. In the first case, they say 6 defendants are accused of using confidential information about the NBA athletes and teams to manipulate game outcomes. The second case involves 31 defendants who allegedly ran and rigged illegal poker games backed by mafia families. So I want to let you listen in now to what they had to say.
But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today, former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Casa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country.
The first indictment involves 6 defendants who are alleged to have participated in one of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams. The second indictment involves 31 defendants alleged to have participated in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. These defendants, which include former professional athletes, used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. The games in the New York area were backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families of La Cosa Nostra. While the cases are separate, there are 3 overlapping defendants charged in both cases: Damon Jones, Eric Ernest, and Shane Hennon.
So you were learning a little bit more about this situation. Officials say both of these schemes ran for years, and the NBA reportedly cooperated with the FBI on this. They have not made any immediate comment on the charges, but we do know they worked to help the FBI with the investigation. So I also want to get you an update now on the government shutdown, because we have entered day 23 with no relief in sight. I'm going to take you to live pictures now of the Senate floor, where we continue to work to see if the government can reach a deal. We know that the Republican bill continues to fail to gain enough votes there on the Senate floor. We also know that as we continue to look at the situation, Oregon Democratic Senator Jeff Merkley made his opinion clear during a marathon speech on the Senate floor. He drew praise from his fellow Democrats and criticism from Republicans. Now, we also know that Merkley's lengthy address tied up Senate business from Tuesday evening until Wednesday, so that delayed the 12th vote on that bill to fund and reopen the government. It didn't pass. We know there's no end in sight. Both sides are still gridlocked on opening the government. Of course, one of the big sticking points continues to be funding Obamacare and its subsidies. The Senate does plan to vote on a Republican-sponsored bill today. You're seeing those live pictures just a bit ago, and that would pay federal employees and troops who are having to work during the shutdown. I also want to get you an update on tariffs, because this is still an ongoing situation, not just here at home, but also in the international stage. We know that as President Trump is doubling down on tariffs, Canada says it is taking action to protect its economy. This comes ahead of a potential trade talk between the U.S. and China next week in South Korea. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney says his country's close economic relationship here with the United States is over. Currently, Canada is the top export destination for more than 36 states here in the United States. But over the next decade, Canada plans to double its non-United States exports. The Trump administration, though, says it's confident this relationship with Canada will turn around. But as you might imagine, Canada just says it's too expensive to do business with the United States. Prime Minister Mark Carney says it's possible the two countries could reach a deal at the summit in South Korea next week. That's where President Trump is expected to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping. He's hoping to reach agreements with China on everything from agriculture to nuclear power. So we are definitely going to stay tuned to that. There are concerns that those talks may not even happen. China escalated tensions by curbing exports of rare earth minerals. China is the largest exporter of rare earth minerals, something the United States relies heavily on. And of course, that could make a trade deal less likely. President Trump has threatened China with additional tariffs if those talks are not successful. I'd like you to listen in to the White House press conference that wrapped up just just a few minutes ago.
Begin today with some scheduling announcements for President Trump's upcoming trip to Asia. Tomorrow night at 11 p.m., the president will depart the White House to fly to Malaysia, where he will arrive on Sunday morning local time. It's a long flight. President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with the Prime Minister of Malaysia in the afternoon, and then he will attend the ASEAN Leaders Working Dinner that evening. On Monday morning local time, the president will fly to Tokyo. Tuesday morning local time, President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with the new Prime Minister of Japan. On Wednesday morning local time, the president will fly to Busan, where he will participate in a bilateral meeting with the President of the Republic of Korea, deliver keynote remarks at the APEC CEO luncheon, and then participate in a U.S. APEC Leaders Working Dinner. On Thursday morning local time, President Trump will participate in a bilateral meeting with President Xi of the People's Republic of China before departing to return home to Washington, D.C. On Thursday night, upon arrival in Washington, President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump will participate in Halloween at the White House, where they will welcome law enforcement, military, and foster families. And I know many of us look forward to that.
White House press secretary speaking. We'll continue to keep you updated on the president's trip to South Korea and all of those meetings. Coming up, we're going to get a check of a museum, the Museum of Art and History in Douglas County. We know that their lease may be terminated, and our Kevin Stewart's going to explain why and how this could affect this treasure in the county coming up. Well, welcome back. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for streaming along with us here on your Thursday afternoon. If you watch Good Day Atlanta, you have probably seen Paul Milliken take us out to the Douglas County Museum of History and Art Visitor Center in downtown Douglasville. Well, that area has been undergoing a bit of a renaissance these days. It's really exciting to see, but the question is, will the museum still be there and be a part of this renaissance? Because the county, Douglas County, just voted to terminate the museum's lease. Our Kevin Stewart has been following the latest on this story and joins us live. Kevin, what's the situation? Why would the county vote to terminate the museum's lease?
Well, they say there needs to be some more work down here. And, you know, this facility has been in the old county courthouse on Church Street for about 26 years. You got all kinds of stuff in here. I mean, I'll show you, for example, right here. You've got a kind of a military exhibit here. This is the Douglas County 9. These are 9 African-American soldiers from Douglas County who fought in World War I. And you look up and down here, you see the Doyle Merritt, who is the first Douglas County resident to be a cadet at West Point. You go all the way down, you have a Confederate statue back here that used to be out front that was pulled back into this museum. And we can swing back over here as well. You have an exhibit for all the sheriffs who have presided over this county. I had a chance to talk to a county commissioner who says that no one here is against museums or anything, but they say they need some work here. And it doesn't necessarily mean that this museum will be history, so to speak, but there needs to be some reevaluation. I want you to take a listen to the executive director of this museum, who says she was caught off guard by all of this.
I couldn't believe it because we've been here so long, and we saved the building purposely for a museum.
This gives us an opportunity to do a full and comprehensive overview and review of how the museum should be established and set up and reflective of the needs of the community. We're looking overall at a review and analysis of that space, and we are going to be continuing to talk internally with the Board of Commissioners as well as the administration on the future usage of that particular property.
Is the goal, so does that necessarily mean that the museum will have to leave, or is that still a decision to be made later?
Yeah, still more conversations to be made later there. There has not been any discussion or decision made on specifically the subject of the museum. So more conversations are to be had there on what the museum will look like, what space the museum will occupy in that facility. The museum or the current composition may decide that they may want to relocate and maintain the same artifacts that they have or that they're looking to preserve as part of the current composition. So again, those conversations and decisions will still need to be held.
And why did the lease have to be terminated for this to take place?
So I wouldn't say it had to be terminated, but it was thought that certainly we needed to consider from a spacing standpoint, not only just for the county, but also what are the needs of the county? What is it that our residents are looking to have there? So certainly, again, this is not a referendum or anything to say that a museum is not important.
All right, now we wanted to get a clearer answer on why the museum here, the folks didn't know about this vote, didn't know that their lease was going to be an issue, and couldn't get a clear answer on that. I thank Commissioner Raxton for talking to us. We've been trying to talk to someone with the county all day. In fact, since yesterday when we heard about this, trying to get some more answers on this. But they say, hey, we didn't even know this was a problem. Ariel?
Yeah, you know, Kevin, it's an interesting situation because I'd imagine it's a community treasure there, but at the same time, county commissioners say they're still trying to figure things out and looking ahead to the future progress as that area continues to grow. I would imagine if you're speaking to different community leaders and stakeholders in the area, what have you been hearing from them? Are people mainly in favor of this? Do they understand? Are they disappointed? Have you heard anything?
Well, I think you get a mix of reactions. Some people who do think that more could be done here, get more people in this facility, and some people don't like any kind of money being spent on anything. Sure. But I do think there is definitely a sense of people who have a pride in this. This is county history, and they want more answers on how this is going to get resolved. I mean, in fact, we have another report coming up later on today on Fox 5 News, but we found some folks coming in from the Netherlands, from the Amsterdam area, who were coming down here to take a look at this facility because they were actually looking for the Stranger Things That show is shot down here. That show's been here for years, and they said that's how they get people in here. The person was kind of like, oh, well, I just want to see the Stranger Things thing, but no, come on, take a look. And so, it's a good way for the county, particularly as it grows, to get people more familiar with the area.
It makes sense. Kevin, it's been a treat to talk to you about this and get a better understanding. Definitely museums play a really pivotal role in our communities and allow people to explain or see a little bit more about the history. So going to be interesting to see how this unfolds in the next steps. Thanks so much for joining us and explaining the situation. We appreciate it. Okay, guys, I want to let you know about a retailer that is cutting Thanksgiving dinner prices. So if you're trying to save money, you can do so. And that would be Walmart, because they have just announced that they are cutting Thanksgiving meal prices to under $4 per person. Walmart announced that its Thanksgiving meal basket will cost just under $4 per person. And this year's price is $3 cheaper than last year's. It's the lowest price the deal has been since it first launched back in 2022. Walmart says their Thanksgiving baskets can feed 10 people and have more than 20 items, including turkey, potatoes, stuffing mix, fried onions, pie crust, and boxed macaroni and cheese. Walmart's holiday meals can be purchased in person or online, and of course for pickup or for delivery. So that is something that we will continue to keep an eye on, and you can find out a little bit more information about that as you work to save money with your family this holiday season. We'll bring you back here to studio. We have meteorologist Lauren Robinson here with us.
Hello.
Lauren, we have about, I would say, 2 minutes. It's quicker today for weather.
All right.
So what do you have for us?
Well, it's still warm and dry, so that's the short of it all.
Okay.
As you take a look at those temperatures all across North Georgia, we're mostly in the lower to middle 70s. Again, above average for this time of year. We're going to stay warm and dry as we go into the first portion of our weekend. But with the warm and dry conditions and that breeze gusting up a bit, we're going to watch for increased fire weather as well. So we want to watch for these low dew points, these gusty winds, and these dry grounds to really increase any sort of fires. So doing any sort of outdoor burning is really not advised over the next few days, at least until we get a bit more rain. And you can see how dry we are on our live Viper radar. Let's also take a look at our latest drought monitor. This was just released this afternoon, and you can see some of these conditions have really expanded. Those bright red colors, extreme drought, that's going to be a level 4 out of 5. Well, we're seeing that across more of North Georgia, including southwestern portions of the metro. So we're going to watch for that to continue on as we go through the next few days. Again, not a whole lot of relief in sight. We can see that by our hour-by-hour forecast. This high pressure system means sunny, dry conditions. We continue to stay under the influence of high pressure through the rest of the day today, into our Friday, and even into our Saturday. We're not really looking for much change until we go into Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. The good news there is we do have a little bit of a rain chance in our extended forecast. In the meantime, tonight we cool off pretty nicely. A lot of us cool into the 40s by the time that sun sets and we go into early tomorrow morning. Of course, a little bit warmer in the metro. We're looking at a seasonal low of around 52 degrees. Tomorrow afternoon, above average again. Seasonal temperatures, meaning where we should be this time of year in the low 70s, we just keep bringing out these middle to upper 70s. Now, as we take a look at our 7-day forecast, this is where we're looking for the relief. It's going to become, or it's really going to come during the first half of next week. We go into the weekend, Friday and Saturday, we're sunny, we're warm, we're dry. But late Sunday is when we start to see some changes push in, and those changes last a couple of days into the next work week. And we really need all the rain we could get, especially in parts of metro Atlanta that are extremely dry.
Incredible to see that drought map and just how quickly things have intensified since even last week when we spoke, because this continues to be an ongoing issue. Lauren, thanks so much. I definitely hope that whatever rain we get brings it more than just, less than half an inch. That does seem to be the case lately. Guys, thanks so much for streaming with us. We really appreciate it. We're going to have more news and items of interest coming up next. Okay, perfect. Well, welcome back. I'm Ariel Onstadt. Thanks so much for streaming with us. We know a little bit more about this sweeping indictment involving illegal gambling and other fraud charges. Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier and Portland Trail Blazers head coach Chauncey Billups have been arrested in this. So I want to bring in attorney Drew Beal to make sense of these indictments and the situation. Drew, it is great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us. Tell me a little bit more about what you're learning about this indictment.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Well, first of all, there's two indictments, and they're really very different. One relates to illegal gambling in what the Department of Justice has classified as rigged games, where certain pro athletes were asked to be present, and they were called face cards, and they were personalities that were exciting for players to be able to sit next to and play with. And those were rigged games. So that's a very different kind of situation. And then the second indictment is that certain players were sharing inside information about players' health or the team or the likelihood of success on a particular game with various straw bettors so that those bettors could then go out and make money. In other words, a player would say, well, I'm going to get injured in this game, or my co-star on this team is not going to be able to play because I just found out a minute ago that he's got the flu. So he's going to be out tonight. We're likely going to lose. So that would affect what people are betting on. So those are two very different types of indictments, and that's kind of the scope of what we know right now. They're both federal, and they're both looks like they're personally brought by Kash Patel and the FBI. They have been following organized crime in betting for some time. But these seem to be kind of isolated pockets. This is not a sports betting scandal in general. Seems to be limited to these two groups of actors who are involved in two very different types of schemes.
You know, it's interesting, Drew, because I'm listening to everything you're saying, and I was, talking about this story a little bit this morning. What I found to be so interesting is the fact that these crime families, the FBI says, were backing these fraud schemes. And at least in one of the indictments, they named the crime families, saying these had mafia ties and had been going on for quite some time. What next steps can we expect to see as this moves through the judicial system?
Well, there will be arraignments coming out shortly, and there'll probably be some kind of press coverage by the Department of Justice taking over the case from the FBI for the prosecution. And there'll probably be some high-level attorneys who are hired to try and represent these parties. It is surprising that the indictment names the various crime families, and they're all the big names that we've heard about for generations and seen in movies. They were heavily invested in the illegal or rigged games. They were not involved in the two athletes, which is Rozier and Damon Jones, who were involved basically in assisting others to bet on their own games based on insider information.
Final question for you before I let you go, Drew. Anything else that you feel would be compelling to share, given your experience as an attorney, and things that struck you as interesting about this case that you think people should know?
Well, I don't think this is a broad-based indictment of the NBA. I don't think it's a broad problem that the NBA has. But I do think with the tremendous proliferation of online gambling that we see in America in every sport, the temptation is going to be overwhelming, because even a tiny kernel of information can make a huge difference if you have a series of straw bettors all set up to act upon that information.
It becomes a house of cards, and it's so interesting hearing a little bit more about how the players would, or one player specifically, could take himself out of a game and change the outcome and what that money would look like. So, Drew, thank you so much for your time and expertise, joining us live today and sharing a little bit more about this case. We really appreciate your time.
Certainly. Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Okay, guys, I'd like to move on here and take you out to another story that we're following here in our newsroom that actually is a little bit of a feel-good story, in the sense that the Cobb County Sheriff's Office is allowing low-risk detainees to work with mounted patrol horses. Our Chris Rosenthal has been out there catching up with the detainees and getting a little bit more on this program. Chris, so good to see you here with us live. I've got about 2 minutes for you, so tell me about this program. I'm excited to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great day out here with the horses here with the Cobb County Sheriff's Office Mounted Patrol. You can see got a couple of the horses behind me. We got Gucci and Duke with the detainees. They've been working with them throughout the day. That's Randall and Josh. And we've also got another horse here. We have Apollo, and joined by Abigail with the she's a stable master here, and she works with these detainees. And just tell me, about this program. What do these detainees, what do they do with these horses here?
So currently, most of their duties entail helping us out with some barn work. So that's cleaning stalls, filling water buckets and hay. But they also do a lot of hands-on work with the horses. So they're grooming them, brushing them, giving them baths. And we're hoping to also have them start doing some work with them on the ground, like actual exercise work. And they're just sort of learning the ins and outs of horse care.
These are detainees. They're getting to, get out of the detention center setting and get out here. What does this mean to them? And what do you see in them when they come interact with these horses?
I love it. I mean, I see them having just a really big sense of peace. I mean, just being outside and enjoying these animals. They've both told me they enjoy having the responsibility of taking care of the horses and building up those bonds. So I really love to see their relationships forming with the horses, and sort of forming those individual friendships is a really cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think they really get a sense of responsibility with taking care of these horses, being around them. Cleaning them, grooming them, taking care of their stables. This program, it's in its 11th week, going on its 12th week here, and these are two of the gentlemen here. To start with, it's a new program, so you can always add more. But I'll tell you, they really do get a lot out of this program here.
Incredible, because I know you were able to speak with some of the detainees. You can see people there. It's like, at the end of the day, who wouldn't want to spend some time outdoors, especially caring for some animals? A great way to relieve stress, and I think probably a good way to build morale. So thanks for introducing this program to us, and excited to see where it goes.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, Chris Rosenthal, thanks so much for joining us. I want to continue to keep you guys updated on what we have coming up next. We're going to be speaking with our Kelly Price about the Falcons as we look ahead to their matchup with Miami. And of course, we're going to chat a little bit about the status of our quarterback's injuries and what that looks like. That's coming up next. welcome back. I'm Ariel Onstad here, of course, with our sports reporter extraordinaire, Kelly Price. Kelly, we've got a lot of things to talk about with the Falcons this week.
Sure do.
One of the big questions, I know, live look there, Mercedes-Benz looking beautiful as always. They're facing Miami Dolphins, and I know that offense has been a conversation that a lot of people have talked about. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so the Falcons haven't had a lot of offense. Well, actually, that's not right. They've had a lot of offense up until the red zone, which is that final 20 yards towards the end zone. They've got a lot of, trips to that red zone, but not a lot of touchdowns and points after that to show for it. They are actually one of just a few teams in the NFL that are under 50% in scoring in that red zone. They're third worst in the NFL, tied with Baltimore. But the thing is, they're moving the ball up into that point. They're sustaining really long drives. They had one this past week that was 10 minutes and 40 seconds, one of their longest since the 90s in a game. So they're definitely doing that. But as you see the video here of Michael Penix, he sustained an injury in this past game against the 49ers. It is a bone bruise in his left knee. But I was watching this video as it was coming in live just a little bit ago from our photographer Blaine Cummett out in Flowery Branch. He looks like he's moving totally fine. No extra braces or anything going on there on his knees. So he said yesterday the plan is for him to play. That's the latest update we have. We don't have the injury designations from today's practice because it is still going on right now. But yesterday he was limited in their walkthrough along with a number of other players because we're just at that point in the NFL season when a lot of people are injured.
Yeah, I immediately my mind kind of goes to what is a bone bruise and how does someone get something like that?
Yeah, so he actually was under pressure a lot on Sunday by the 49ers. He got hit quite a bit. It was the most he's kind of been hit all season long. A bone bruise is really just, that's kind of what it sounds like. It's just a really deep bruise. It can be very uncomfortable. He's had a number of knee injuries, in his college career. He hasn't had anything since he's been in the NFL necessarily. But he said, this is a totally different deal. I feel totally fine. I feel ready to go. It just kind of was a precaution, I think, that they want to make sure that he's totally ready to go for, the rest of the season, really. But he feels good. And like I said, doesn't really seem to be limited or hampered by it in the practice that we got to see a little bit earlier. But we'll see what happens on Sunday, and we'll see what the injury report kind of progresses throughout the week for him.
I think definitely we want our quarterback in the game, right? We also want him to be in great health and to feel okay while playing. Definitely don't want anyone to be in pain. So I know there was talk he would be out for quite some time because of that injury. What does this mean for Miami? Do we know?
I think they're still going to plan for number 9 to be the quarterback and not Kirk Cousins. Of course, they do have Kirk Cousins still on the roster as the backup quarterback, so he is there as well. Probably the best backup quarterback in the league. So they do have that to prepare for as far as Miami goes. But look, Miami is a mess. They're 1-6. They're potentially on the brink of firing their head coach. They've just got a lot of dysfunction going on over in Miami, and that's kind of a dangerous thing for the Falcons to play with because a team that comes in with nothing to lose, but they still have a lot of talent on offense, a lot of speed on offense, and it's any given Sunday in the NFL. As we've seen with these Falcons, they can lose 30-0 to the Panthers, or they can, a lot of teams can lose to a lot of different teams.
And I think it's that feeling of complacency that you're describing, where you go in and you feel like, okay, this team, I don't need to be worried because of the record, but it's when you don't worry and you get comfortable that, things happen.
Yeah, and Michael Penix Jr. actually said it yesterday. Those guys get paid as well. They're 1% of athletes in the world. They're playing in the NFL for a reason. And I actually got to talk with backup wide receiver and special teams pro Kadarius Hodge about why Miami can be dangerous for them.
The Dolphins coming up, that's, potentially a dangerous team just because it's a team that maybe has nothing to lose at this point too. Especially, as a team that's been through that before here. What are the challenges when you face a team like that?
You can't really look at records in the NFL because everybody's good. It comes down to like 1 or 2 plays in the game to where things could change or people can label you as a bad team or a good team. Actually, the Dolphins are a pretty good team. They've lost, I think, a couple games in the fourth quarter. There's a couple things just went the wrong way. So we have to take the same approach as with every team, regardless of the record. we have to respect them and come in and do our jobs to the best of our ability. So we don't really look as like, okay, this is a down week, because we'll get ran over if we do that. So we have to come in with and respect our competition every week, because like I said, it's the NFL, so no team's really sorry.
Him, and you got to hear him kind of talk a little bit about that, Kelly. I'd imagine that he's also looking ahead, right, like as we are, to how the whole offensive picture stacks up and what's that going to look like.
Well, and that's a guy who could potentially, he's been a guy who's really contributed on special teams mostly. He was a Pro Bowler actually as a special teamer last year, but he could contribute on offense for them because they have a little bit of a depth issue at wide receiver right now. They just released Ray McLeod for Raheem Morris said it was performance-based, but there was also maybe some off-field stuff going on there with Ray McLeod. So wide receiver 3 is now no longer on the roster. Darnell Mooney, who's kind of wide receiver 2, has been kind of coming back from a hamstring injury, has been a little bit not himself. And then, of course, Drake London, wide receiver 1. So there's a little bit of a puzzle there who can maybe catch some targets from Michael Penix Jr. outside of a Kyle Pitts, outside of Drake London. But they also need to run the ball better and sustain these drives. They did not run the ball well in San Francisco at all, and that's really their bread and butter they need to improve on.
So, question for you. I know we've discussed Michael Penix Jr., his injuries, what that outlook looks like. Are there other players who are also facing an injury outlook?
Yes, there are a number of guys. I actually wrote them all down because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anyone. Yesterday's injury report is more of an estimate because it was just a walkthrough. Today is the first practice of the week. So they got 2 guys back from injured reserve that they can potentially activate. Storm Norton, who's an offensive lineman, he's going to be huge for them in that left tackle spot, or
I can't believe
right tackle spot
on the Falcons now, because I remember when he was the Chargers, or was it the LA team?
I'm not sure where he was before this. He's been here for a number of years.
I'm gonna look this up because I definitely know when I lived in Ohio, he trained with my gym trainer.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, just a bit of a memory jog.
He's coming back from, I believe it's an ankle surgery, but he could plug in back at right tackle, which is, has been a little bit of an issue for them, but he is potentially going to be activated, as well as safety Jordan Fuller. Those are 2 guys that they could get back this week. As far as the limited guys were Penix, who we obviously talked about, Darnell Mooney, who we talked a little bit about, Tyler Algier, who has a hip and knee injury, Jake Matthews, who has the ankle, Zach Harrison with a knee, and Mike Ford Jr. And then the guys that didn't practice were Jalen Walker with a groin injury, Billy Bowman with a hamstring, and Divine Diablo, who fractured his forearm in this last game. And that one is the biggest loss. That's the biggest painful loss for the Falcons too, because he's done so much for them at linebacker. And we'll see. They're going to kind of plug in a couple different guys to replace him.
You said it earlier when we first started this conversation, just this idea that by this point in the season, a lot of guys are facing injuries. Why is that? Is it just because with constant training and games and stress, our bodies weaken, and then at this point in the season, we're going to face those injuries? Or is there another reason?
It's the NFL, so really ginormous humans running into each other at full speed all the time. Wrong? It's a lot of that, and there's just not enough time to recover in a lot of cases from maybe an injury you sustained last week that wasn't so bad, but hey, guess what? We have another game. The Falcons have played a number of games. Like last week, they played 2 games within the calendar day, 7 days. They played on Monday night and then they played on Sunday night. So it was a little bit of a short week for them. So they've kind of and they had that early bye week, so they haven't had any extra time to kind of recover from these things.
It is a really good testament to just how much your body does need that rest and recovery. We have our pro athletes, right, where we have the best trainers and of course nutrition and different things, making sure they are at their best, but nothing can account for that time of rest, sleep, recovery, and giving your body a break. So any final thoughts on the Miami matchup that you think people should look out for?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big day for the defense to maybe get a rebound. They had a pretty fine performance in San Francisco outside of Christian McCaffrey doing Christian McCaffrey things, which is really hard to limit. But the defense really wants to put something else on film that isn't that, right? They want to be able to limit this Miami offense, which has struggled. Tua obviously has struggled at quarterback. He's thrown a lot of interceptions. They want to be able to force some turnovers of their own this next week, but they do have a lot of weapons over there as well. And Jeff Ulbrich, who's the defensive coordinator for the Falcons, he used to be with the Jets, used to see these guys twice a year, knows them really well, and said, I have seen them hurt me and my teams in the past. I don't want to have that happen again.
Sure.
So I think the defense has a chance to have a nice rebound.
Kelly, I always appreciate our discussions. Thanks for coming on, wrapping this up for us. We'll look ahead to the Miami Dolphins and the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. You guys, thanks so much for streaming with us. We're going to go ahead and have more news coming up for you in our 3 o'clock streaming hour. We'll see you right here.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for streaming with us here on a Thursday afternoon, the 3 p.m. hour. I'm Tom Haynes, live with you in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom, watching a lot of things unfolding right now as we speak. We're watching Capitol Hill, where negotiations continue on what is day 22 of the government shutdown. That is the U.S. Senate floor. Amy Klobuchar there making arguments. The Senate has failed once again on terms to reopen the government, and they've failed on an agreement to pay essential workers. We're listening to what Senator Klobuchar, the Democrat from Minnesota, has to say. We'll update you on the status of negotiations between lawmakers here in just a moment. But we want to begin locally with a breaking story. It turned out to be a real bomb threat at a U.S. postal facility, and it's not the first time something like this has happened here. Our Deidre Dukes live on the scene collecting the very latest information. Deidre, what more can you tell us about what happened there this morning?
Yeah, what a morning for those who work here at this USPS facility here on Villanova Drive in the city of South Fulton, as well as for those who work in the surrounding buildings here in this industrial park off of Fulton Industrial Boulevard in the city of South Fulton. Now, it is business as usual here this afternoon at this facility, but quite a different scene earlier this morning after an employee here reported a possible explosive device here at the facility. Now, the City of South Fulton Police and also Atlanta Police assisting them with a bomb squad arriving here. They did contain that device and transported it to another area for detonation. And then just after noon, we were notified that, in fact, that was actually an explosive device. So the investigation has taken quite an escalation as to investigating what happened, how it got here, who did it, and why. As you said, Tom, this is the second time in a matter of months, the last time being in September, where police were called out here for reports of a suspicious package. Now, in that instance in September, it was not an explosive device. It turned out that it was, in fact, just simply a mangled package. And so that was not a situation, turned out not to be a serious situation. But in this instance, it was confirmed that it was an explosive device. We spoke to someone here who works in the area earlier today, and here's what they had to say about all the activity out here this morning.
And I mean, this happens all the time. They actually do find devices, so I'm not sure as to why this keeps happening. My question is, what does the post office do to make someone so mad to want to give them a bomb threat?
Now, again, folks are back here working once the had not been determined that it was an explosive device. Once the possible device at that time was removed from here, the employees were allowed to return back to work, as were the folks here in the surrounding area. The road was reopened to traffic once officers left the scene. And then again, we were told just after noon that, in fact, it was, in fact, confirmed to have been an explosive device. And so the investigation takes a turn. Again, this is the second time in a matter of months that the police have been called to this area, to this facility. And so, as you can imagine, there are folks in this area who are very concerned about that, wondering why this keeps happening. But that's the latest here in the investigation. We were told by a spokesperson with the city of South Fulton. Of course, the investigation is ongoing. We work to get more information, and we'll have an update for you starting at 4 o'clock.
Deidre,
now, that is the latest here in the city of South Fulton. Back to you, Tom.
Deidre, just looking geographically where you are, you're west of the city at I-20, a little south past the perimeter in sort of a warehouse-type district. And you may not know the answer to this question, but were they able to get in, extract the device? Did they detonate it? What did they do with that package? Do you know?
So they actually came here with the City of Atlanta Police Department assisting. They did come here. They removed the device, took it to another area to detonate it, at that time determining that, in fact, it was an explosive device, yes.
All right, pretty scary stuff, and glad certainly that nobody was hurt out there. Deidre, thanks for the latest. Want to move on to that incredible story that we began covering on Monday. That is the threat to shoot up Atlanta Airport. It's a story we broke here in the 2 and 3 p.m. hours of Fox Local. Tyler Fingert, our reporter, has been all over that story. He's live there in front of the federal courthouse. Tyler, we know the man who threatened to shoot up the world's busiest airport. It moved from local to federal custody. What kind of charges is Billy Cagle going to face, and what is his defense team starting to look like?
Well, Tom, good afternoon to you. He obviously is facing several charges here in federal court, 3 counts, including threatening to shoot up an international airport. I'll tell you, during his appearance in federal court yesterday, his defense team told the federal judge that he has had a history of mental health issues, and we are now learning some new details based off an arrest warrant that I was able to obtain today. First, let's show you who Billy Cagle is once again. This is his mugshot, and we're also going to show you some video from his arrest on Monday, just days after police say Cagle's plot to shoot up the Atlanta airport was foiled by his own wife and another family member. We're now learning new details about the convicted felon's state of mind when he reportedly made the violent threats on FaceTime. His Clayton County arrest warrant says Cagle's wife told investigators that they were not only going through a divorce, but that he suffers from schizophrenia and was off his meds. This afternoon, I spoke to a doctor, Joseph Browning, who is a board-certified adult and forensic psychiatrist not affiliated with the case. He teaches at Emory University's law school about the intersection of mental health and the law. Take a listen to what he had to say about schizophrenia, which he says is a chronic, lifelong illness, and it's never cured, so patients would need to stay medicated. Take a listen.
Schizophrenia is a psychotic illness that impacts someone's ability to interact appropriately with the world. Someone with schizophrenia just doesn't perceive the world the way someone without schizophrenia does.
And then during Cagle's initial appearance in court Wednesday afternoon, his legal team told the federal magistrate judge Cagle has, quote, a history of mental health issues and they need to obtain some psychiatric records. Dr. Browning says it's important for the court to know Cagle's state of mind and says a competency hearing could be scheduled to figure out what Cagle is thinking now and at the time of his arrest. He says depending on the outcome, an insanity defense could be used. Take a listen.
If a defendant is competent to stand trial, then the case will typically move forward and be resolved. However, if the defendant is incompetent to stand trial, what will happen is some effort to restore that competency, typically in an inpatient facility.
And so obviously this is a case that's just beginning in federal court. This is something that we're going to be seeing play out over the course of the next several weeks and months ahead as he gets ready for a possible trial here at the federal courthouse in downtown Atlanta. We should note, as I mentioned at the top of this, that he is facing 3 charges and he is due back in court sometime next week. Tom?
It's interesting, Tyler, the perspective you just provided on how they're already kind of gaming out his defense, at least where these federal charges are concerned, and whether an insanity plea can enter into that. And I'm wondering, after he faces these federal charges for threatening to shoot up the world's busiest airport, can he then move on to facing local charges for the same crime, or is this going to reside exclusively in the federal court system?
And that is actually a really good question, Tom. We have not heard from Atlanta police whether this is something that's going to continue on once it is finished in federal court. We do know, and I will tell you, that when he was transferred from state to federal custody, the charges that were listed on the jail log for the Clayton County Sheriff's Office no longer said what the charges were. So that could indicate that essentially, basically, these charges were upgraded from state to federal charges. In some situations, you can obviously you will be retried in the state. In other cases, it could just be elevated to a federal level. So that's something we don't know at this point. That is something that is obviously going to be that the city of Atlanta and also the Clayton County District Attorney's Office will have to weigh. I will tell you, based off what we do know, according to in a release we got earlier this week, that before the federal charges were decided on, there was consultation with the city of Atlanta Police Department along with the Clayton County District Attorney's Office.
Yeah, we know you know all the inner workings of the airport, and we know you're going to stay on top of this case with Billy Cagle, who's facing federal charges for this incident that happened Monday that you were all over, Tyler. Thanks for the latest. Want to move now to another national story that's unfolding. Have you heard about this? More than 30 people included in this huge sports betting case, including the Portland Trailblazers and the Miami Heat. The head coach of the Trailblazers, as a matter of fact, and a Miami Heat guard included in this. They're charged with allegedly participating in illegal sports betting and rigged poker games. Authorities holding a news conference explaining the indictments. In the first case, 6 defendants accused of using confidential information about NBA athletes and teams to manipulate game outcomes. Okay, so the second case involves 31 defendants who allegedly ran and rigged illegal poker games backed by mafia families. So some very bizarre components of this story, which federal investigators, including the FBI director, addressed just a short time ago.
But as you now know, individuals such as Chauncey Billups, Damon Jones, and Terry Rozier were taken into custody today, former, current NBA players and coaches. What you don't know is that this is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years. The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case, which is very much ongoing. Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families. And you'll hear more about those details today. The charges and the arrests that were taken down across this country range from wire fraud, money laundering, extortion, robbery, illegal gambling. This FBI will leave no room for any perpetrator of crime across this country.
The first indictment involves 6 defendants who are alleged to have participated in one of the most brazen sports corruption schemes since online sports betting became widely legalized in the United States. This scheme is an insider sports betting conspiracy that exploited confidential information about National Basketball Association athletes and teams. The second indictment involves 31 defendants alleged to have participated in a nationwide scheme to rig illegal poker games. These defendants, which include former professional athletes, used high-tech cheating technology to steal millions of dollars from victims in underground poker games that were secretly fixed. The games in the New York area were backed by the Bonanno, Gambino, and Genovese crime families of La Cosa Nostra. While the cases are separate, there are 3 overlapping defendants charged in both cases: Damon Jones, Eric Ernest, and Shane Hennon.
On my way home from work.
So that is a news conference held by federal officials in this sports betting scheme. The alleged crime involving Portland Trailblazers head coach, Miami Heat guard, and many, many others. The NBA saying it had no immediate comment on the charges, but reportedly is cooperating with federal officials and the FBI. Officials, by the way, saying that these schemes have been running for years, but just a bizarre set of circumstances when you hear that the mafia may have some sort of connection to all this. Well, it is day 23, as I mentioned at the top of the stream here, of the federal government shutdown. Certainly you've been paying attention to this story. The Senate voting today to have a special sort of amendment, if you will, although that's not the proper legal or government term for this, but to fund essential workers. In other words, to pay them, because we've been talking about how the people like the TSA and air traffic controllers haven't been getting paid. And so debate is underway on the floor of the United States Senate, but they couldn't pass that special exception to pay the federal workers, these essential workers, unfortunately. It's a little hard to believe how that couldn't have happened. Several senators voting to make that happen, but it didn't get across the finish line. This is the 12th 12th time today that the Republican bill failed to gain enough votes. And with the end of the shutdown nowhere in sight now, both sides are still pointing fingers at one another. Democrats are demanding another sit-down with President Trump to hash things out before he goes over to Asia to meet with the Chinese president. But Trump said that he has one condition by which he will meet with Democratic lawmakers, and that is to open the government. And then he will sit down with them and negotiate terms of these medical entitlements like Obamacare, Medicare, and Medicaid subsidies. Turning to trade now, Canada saying that it's going to double its non-U.S. exports. This in the face of some tariffs that are going to hit the country between Canada and the United States. So they're saying that they have no choice but to now work with other countries and increase their exports to those other countries, since the United States won't be the kind of trading partner that it has been in years past. Meanwhile, President Trump is predicting he can make a big deal with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in South Korea next week. The Canadian Prime Minister, who you just saw there a second ago, Mark Carney, saying that his country's close economic relationship with the United States is now over. Canada is the top export destination for more than 36 states here in the United States. But over the next decade, the country is planning to double its non-U.S. exports. The Trump administration, though, saying that it's confident that the relationship will turn around and that it's possible, according to the Canadian Prime Minister, that the two countries can still reach a deal at this summit where he will be in South Korea next week. When we come back, a busy afternoon of news. We're going to check on our weather as we sort of turn the corner and start focusing on our weekend. Looks like it's going to be another 50-50 type of situation, but how much rain are we looking for in the forecast? Meteorologist Lauren Robinson is on deck, waiting here in the wings, and she'll have the answer for you as we continue in the 3 p.m. streaming hour of Fox Local. Welcome back to the 3 p.m. streaming hour here on Fox Local. I'm Tom Haynes with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. A 16-year-old Atlanta boy is under arrest after a shootout with officers at a Texaco gas station. Our Eric Perry is following this story for us. Eric, what more do we know about this shooting, and was anyone injured here?
Yeah, thankfully nobody was injured in this, Tom. But I want to start at the end and then work my way back to the beginning here. So this is where it ended. So take a look. This is a home that police believe he might have barricaded himself into. You can see windows, holes in the windows, damage there. But they say they found him in the wood line, which is just behind the home here on Newcastle Road. So this is right off of MLK and Josephine Boone. It started, take a look at some of the video here. Started at this Texaco gas station where they got a call for suspicious activity. When they got there, officers arrived. They say that the 16-year-old fired a single shot toward the officers, then took off running there. So this prompted a massive response yesterday evening around 6, 7 o'clock here. If you were in the area, I had friends here in this area. They were asking me what was going on. They sent video in, but they really canvassed, searched this area. There's also a nearby school, Booker T. Washington High School, that was placed on lockdown because they were having an event in the evening time here. Hours later, they were able to track him down to this abandoned home and then ultimately take him into custody around 2 o'clock this morning. I talked with neighbors throughout the morning. Take a listen to what they had to say.
My way home from work, police just started flying all over the place. I stopped at Walmart and we couldn't get through. As we have a school right around the corner and we have a lot of children in this community, and just do better.
2 a.m. they rang our doorbell again to see if we had heard anything since then, and that's when the drones went in and apparently found the kid.
All right, back out here live, if we can take us back live now. Booker T. Washington High School, and you're taking a look at the damage there on the window. I'm told, again, this is an abandoned house inside, but I'm told that Booker T. Washington High School was having a coronation service or ceremony yesterday, so that's why we had a lot of students still on campus around 6, 7 o'clock. It's supposed to be a very joyous time, but of course, frantic moments as parents got that alert. You know, in today's society, today's age, you never know when you get an alert that your child's school is on lockdown. So they rushed to the scene here. Thankfully, no one was injured there at the school there. No officers were injured. And even for that suspect, he was taken into custody, we're told, without injuries there. As of last check, we have not heard of any official charges, but police do say they plan to charge him with several different things there. And again, this is a 16-year-old we're talking about, so we're not going to get a mugshot or a name unless they decide to charge him as an adult, Tom.
But incredible, the sequence of events that you just laid out for us, beginning there at that home and then moving to the gas station and the school involved. Just incredible, as you say, that nobody was seriously injured, and quite scary. Eric, thanks. All right, want to take you outside for a live look. Boy, just another one of these spectacular days. We've strung so many of them together at this point, except on the weekend, of course, when we get a skirt of rain. And one day this week we had a couple of showers here and there. But for the most part, the weather has just been absolutely spectacular, Lauren. We're really relishing this like October fall weather. I know we could use the rain, but this isn't so bad.
Yeah, it's the flip side of having beautiful weather for so long as we've gone through the month of October. And as we continue to go through the rest of the month, we're going to stay pretty dry. We do have some rain chances coming in that could help us out, but man, it's been beautiful, but it's been dry. Those temperatures now in the middle to upper 70s across most of North Georgia, which is already above average for this time of year. And we're going to see those temperatures rise a little more, maybe a few more degrees as we go into this afternoon. Right now, we're taking a look at the sustained winds, mostly coming in between 5 to 15 miles per hour. And why we're looking at this is because we do have increased fire weather danger. That just means we're very dry, we're a bit gusty, humidity, and we have very low dew points. So no outdoor burns are recommended over the next few days until we get some water in our soils. Now, as we take a look at our live Viper radar, not a whole lot happening there. We're going to continue to be very dry, which means that Viper is going to continue to be very empty. Now, every Thursday, we have the U.S. Drought Monitor is released, and we can see today is the latest update to it in that bright red color, which is a level 4 out of 5 on our severity scale. That has grown. It's really grown across southern and southwestern portions of the state, but even as we zoom in to our viewing area, you'll notice southwestern portions of Metro Atlanta have really increased into extreme drought. The rest of the metro area has seen severe drought, and almost all of the state is under a level 2 moderate drought in the tan. We have a level 1 up to the north there where we've gotten a bit more rain showers and a bit higher terrain, so a bit less dry there, but all in all, the entire state could use some raindrops. Now, we're not going to see that over the next few days, and this is why. That high pressure system circling over the state, that means hot, dry, sunny weather for us. We're going to continue to stay under the influence of high pressure systems as we go through the day today, tomorrow, and even into our Saturday. We're not looking for much change to come in until late day Sunday. So as we take a look at our current lows, we're going to cool down quite nicely. We're going to be in the 40s overnight. Tomorrow, we're looking at those temperatures to be above average again. And then let's take a look at this 7-day forecast. This is where we finally see a little bit of relief in sight. Some temperatures dropping into the 60s, but we're also going to see a few more rain chances to hopefully help with that drought that we have going on all across Georgia.
Okay, and looking at the weekend, Lauren, so it looks like another half weekend situation, with Sunday being the day that we could get some rain.
Right, and right now, and things could change over the next 48 to 72 hours, but right now it's looking like that rain will come during the second half of the day Sunday, so if you have Sunday morning plans, you should be good.
All right, Lauren, thanks. Well, it is fall. We know that there's beautiful weather out there. We've certainly been enjoying it, and we're looking forward to a lot of fall-like activities, Thanksgiving, and then, of course, Christmas. And that means the annual spectacular at the Fox Theater, the Nutcracker performance, the Atlanta Ballet getting ready for that. And they are holding auditions, we understand. So if you are an aspiring dancer or performer and the Nutcracker is your thing and you're a little one, well, the Atlanta Ballet wants your attention. That's Dinah Saglio, who's the media relations person for the Atlanta Ballet. So Dinah, tell us about the auditions you're holding and tell us where you guys are now in terms of preparing for the big Nutcracker performance. Dinah Saglio, Atlanta Ballet, you with me? All right, we're gonna check on Dinah's audio situation there. Little technical hiccup. Take a quick break. When we come back, we'll hook up with her, and still much more to come as we stream with you here in the 3 p.m. hour on Fox Local. Welcome back, everybody. Tom Haines with you live here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour on Fox Local. Just got some brand new information. Remember that story we did off the top of the newscast about that so-called explosive device, or at least the alleged one, found at a USPS facility out in West Atlanta. We just learned from South Fulton that that was not an explosive device that they found. The device was determined to be some sort of military device, and an X-ray scan conducted by Dobbins yielded what they initially characterized as some concerning results. So out of an abundance of caution, they brought the package for further processing. But again, the update that we have now in our hands from South Fulton investigators is that it was not an explosive device, and that the all clear has been given to that processing facility. We'll continue to keep tabs on that situation there. Want to bring you live to the White House, where the president is holding a roundtable right now discussing homeland security issues, these drug cartel hits that they've been making in the Caribbean Sea, and they just did one in the Pacific Ocean. Let's listen to what the president has to say.
It was a very sick city. It was horrible what happened there. People would go from, if you're on the board of FedEx, they would ride you 1 block to the hotel. They said you couldn't walk it because it was too dangerous. And they're already feeling better about it. But the best example right now is Washington, D.C. We went from one of the most unsafe places in the planet, I hate to say, but in this country, to a totally safe city. It's nothing's crime-free, I guess, but this is about as close to crime-free as you're going to get. And you guys have done an incredible job with that. Every one of you have worked so hard on this one, and it's our nation's capital. And people would go to the nation. They'd go from, I always say, Iowa, Indiana. They'd go from Florida, they'd come up, they want to see the monument, I want to see the Lincoln Memorial, I want to see one of the monuments, any one of them, and they'd go home in a coffin. But not anymore. It's not happening anymore. We haven't had that happen in a long time. It was averaging more than one a week, one person a week. Who would think that's possible? And it hasn't happened anymore. And we have a safe city. We have a city where the restaurants are booming. People are going out. Nobody's being mugged, hit over the head with a baseball bat. None of the stuff has gone. We took out 1,700 criminals, many of them career criminals, many of them given to us by Joe Biden and his ridiculous open borders policy. They came in from jails from all over the world, not just South America, from all over the world. Jails, they came in from mental institutions and insane asylums all over the world, drug dealers. And we got them the hell out of here. They're either that, or if they're so bad, as I said before, we put them in jail because we can't take a chance that they come back. But I want to just say that Washington, D.C. is such an example of what could be done. And now the same thing's happening in Memphis. We're just halfway through the process, and already the numbers are far superior, far better than what we would have thought at this time. And Chicago, I just saw the number last week. It was last weekend. 4 were murdered, 11 were shot. And then I have this guy Pritzker, is a very weak governor. Let me be nice. I'm going to be very nice. He's extremely weak. He's pathetic. I have Pritzker get up and say how great they're doing in Chicago. They're doing very poorly. So 4 were murdered, 11 were shot. I would say, and that was not a bad week for him. Okay, that was not a bad week. He's had somewhere 18 or 19 were murdered. And you know what his excuse was? Yeah, but that was a long weekend. Okay? Can you believe it? He said that was a long weekend. He's bad. And then the mayor is worse. I mean, that mayor is worse. Low IQ, very low IQ. And we don't need low IQ people. We need people that are going to take care. And I love Chicago, and I love those beautiful women. Black women, beautiful women wearing MAGA hats, and they're all over the place in Chicago. They want protection. They don't care if it's the National Guard, if it's the Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Marines. They'll take Space Force, okay? Space Force, send them in. They just don't want to be mugged, killed, raped, shot in the head, and we stop it. So we're going to be given a very special we're going to give Chicago very special care. As you probably know, maybe you heard, we were going to do a big surge in San Francisco, but I got a great call from some incredible people, some friends of mine, very successful people. Mark, everybody knows him, and Jensen, everybody knows Jensen, NVIDIA, and others called me from San Francisco, and they said, we're working really, really hard with the mayor, and we're making progress. Would it be possible for you to hold off the surge? And I had 4 or 5 calls, and I think they're making progress of their own. That would be the
live pictures from the White House, where President Trump's holding a roundtable with the Department of Homeland Security and his Attorney General Pam Bondi, talking about crime-fighting efforts in not only in the nation's capital, Washington D.C., where he says crime is dramatically down, almost to nothing, as the National Guard still patrols that city, but other areas where he'd like to expand the National Guard crime-fighting effort to make our cities safer, places like Chicago and in San Francisco and in Portland, Oregon. Those efforts being tangled up by the federal appellate court system and will undoubtedly make their way all the way up to the Supreme Court as the president works to dispatch National Guard troops to those cities who have tangled with ICE enforcement agents, who are federal agents, and that is the reasoning behind the president using the National Guard in many of these cases, because he wants to keep the federal ICE agents safe. So the president speaking about that and other items there as he meets with his Homeland Security and Justice Department team. When we come back, a couple great stories about equine therapy and our students in the Atlanta public school system as we continue here on Fox Local. Is that, we have 40 seconds. Welcome back, everybody. It's really starting to feel like the season out there with cooler temperatures, the holiday decor up in stores all around the metro Atlanta area. And you're thinking Nutcracker, right? Because that is also a definite sign of the season in our area. We are joined by Dinah Saglio, who is a member of the Nutcracker Magical Christmas Ballet. She joins us now live. Thanks so much for being with us. You are actually looking for some performers for this performance in the form of child performers. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, one of our favorite parts of the tour is our Dance With Us program, which invites dancers age 6 to 17 in each city that we visit to audition for the show and train with our team and then take part in our performances in their local community. It's a really amazing program, and the auditions are actually this weekend in Atlanta.
So we know about the original Nutcracker performance, the one that kind of happens around Thanksgiving and runs through the holidays. This one's different. It features some acrobatics and some big, larger-than-life puppetry. Tell us a little bit more about this show.
Yes, so in the second act of the show, instead of going to the traditional land of sweets, Claire goes to the land of peace and harmony, where she meets a whole cast of characters from around the world, including, as you mentioned, some larger-than-life puppets. There are some 7-foot-tall unicorn puppets, a bull, a few others that are really amazing. She's also accompanied by a dog named Sweets, who is a hand activated puppet that accompanies her along the entire journey. The other amazing part of it are the acrobatics. There's a huge emphasis on all of the things you would expect: flips, cartwheels, all of those amazing aerial tricks. We also have a sear wheel artist who performs during the second act, which is really a crowd pleaser.
This sounds so cool. And so if I'm a parent with a child performer who I think can meet the standards of performing in the Nutcracker Magical Christmas Ballet, how do I put them in front of you? In other words, when are the auditions?
Yes, the auditions are this Saturday, October 25th, at the Namari Dance Center. So anybody can show up there. They are at 4 p.m. We've been partnering with them for many years. And then from there, Namari kind of runs the rest of the rehearsal process.
And you got to be a skilled performer, so to speak. I mean, this is a professional show. And so you have a professional ballet dance troupe, and you're looking for sort of this supporting cast to put the finishing touches on this performance.
Yep, definitely. I think you don't have to be a professional level dancer for this. We have a whole range of roles for the children, from the party children. They can be mice, snowflakes, up to the older students who are part of the junior corps de ballet in some of those other numbers in the second act. So really any level of dance skill. And as you said, it's amazing because these children get to be part of a professional production, which is just such a unique experience.
Yeah, that's so cool, and so cool to have that on your resume as a young performer. Real quick, before we let you go, tell us the dates of your Atlanta performance and where you guys are having the show.
Yes, so the show is at the Fox Theater on December 23rd, with shows at 3 and 7 p.m., and then on December 24th with the show at 1 p.m.
All right, incredible, and we appreciate it so much. Dinah Saglio, thanks for being with us this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Want to keep moving along here. The Cobb County Sheriff's Office has launched an important initiative. It's equine therapy style work. They just released a program designated to develop skills, take on responsibility, and prepare for successful reintegration into society from those who've been incarcerated. Our Chris Rosenthal has more.
Yeah, guys, I'm in Cobb County, joined by some horses. This is actually Gucci behind me. These horses are with the Cobb County Sheriff's Office. They have 7 of these horses here. They use them for everything from, mounted patrols and getting into areas where vehicles and patrol vehicles can't get. And these are a couple of those horses. This is Major and Diesel, and this is Josh and Randall. They are a couple of detainees. They're actually using these horses as an equine therapy program for these detainees. They're in the 11th week of this program, and I'm joined by Major Scipio here with the Cobb County Sheriff's Office. And tell me a little bit about this program. How did this come to be?
The Cobb County Sheriff's Office is committed to creating programs for detainees to help them heal, to help them grow, and to help them to success, to prepare them prior to them returning back to their communities. We have a equine therapy type program which allows them to step outside of the detention environment and come out and accept real responsibility and learn different things as far as it's going to help them along the way.
And what sort of duties and responsibilities do they have when they come here?
Well, they come in every day. They work 3 days a week. In the morning until late afternoon, they work continuously hard. They're under direct supervision. They learn details, they learn structure, they learn patience, and they work the horses. They start off in the morning with walking them. They bring them inside to feed them. They groom them, they wash them, and they also provide nutritious vitamins and minerals, and they're under the direct supervision of our stable masters and her crew.
You have 2 detainees now in this program, but is this a program you're looking to grow and add more?
That is correct. And what we do, we measure that on a day-to-day basis. We look at what is positive. We look at their attitude, their mentality, their patience that they're learning, that they have with the horses, and their emotional setting as far as at the end of the day how it makes them feel when they're done doing that.
Awesome. I'm going to come over here and get a look at some of these horses over here. And again, this is Major here, and this is Diesel, and this is Josh. And Josh, tell me a little bit about, you work with Diesel a lot. Tell me a little bit about what you do here. What are some of your duties and responsibilities here?
Of course, I clean them, muck their stalls, I feed them, water them. I do the grooming to them also. That's about it on my duties with the horses.
Yeah, and what do you get out of this? What do you learn from working with these horses?
I needed to be reminded of responsibility and accountability, and working with these horses have given me that.
Hey. Well, that's right. These horses really do help out these detainees. Really give them a sense of sense of responsibility and a sense of sense of purpose here. So. And this program will continue on. Like I said, we're in the 11th week, and it keeps going. So, back to you.
All right, an awesome effort. Chris Rosenthal out at the Cobb County Sheriff's Office Equine Center. Chris, thanks. When we come back, an urgent call from one of our most important local charitable organizations. You're going to hear about it as we continue. All right, as we reported at the top of the show, the federal government still shut down as lawmakers to work to hammer out an agreement, terms to reopen it. That hasn't happened, though, and so local food banks are suffering, and people in our community who are less fortunate are suffering. Elizabeth Omalami is the president of Hosea Helps, one of the flagship organizations, the storied charitable organizations here in our community. You say you're not having a good morning. We spoke during the break. Elizabeth, tell me what's going on and the demand among folks that receive EBT and SNAP benefits.
No, I'm not having a good morning because this morning, before we even got to work, there were 20 cars in line to get food, and we only serve on Wednesdays, but this was Thursday. We served everybody. But they found out about the food stamp cuts, the SNAP, and the WIC programs, and with anxiety comes fear, and this is going to go from a crisis to a disaster if organizations like us are low in our inventory, which we are, of food, because the number of people coming to us for food is going to explode, especially in November when we are working on our Thanksgiving dinner. So I'm very, very concerned. You know, SNAP covers Medicaid. It covers CAPS, which is money for child care. It covers TANF, which is financial assistance for working families. SNAP is not just about food. And then you've got the senior citizens that depend on the food stamps. You got family making less than $2,000 a month. With children, depending on food stamps, and you have disabled people who can't work depending on this program. So it is a crisis for us in this community, and people get afraid. So we need food desperately here.
Yeah, we often think about air traffic controllers, TSA workers, but on the ground level, the folks that you're working to feed, and those folks are certainly in need too. They're not getting paid right now, by the way. What can we do to augment your efforts, real quick?
We can get food drives going. We can talk to major philanthropists and call them out to move in this situation at Hosea Helps. And we can bring food to our headquarters. You go to our website at number 4hosea.org. It gives you our address. We need help, Atlanta.
All right. Elizabeth Omalami, we're going to post this on our website. Hopefully it's a call to action for folks in our community, and we know that they will step up to help. Thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. You for being with us here in the 3 p.m. streaming hour. I'm Tom Haynes with you live in the Fox 5 Atlanta newsroom. Don't go anywhere because the news continues right here, right now.
Fox 5 News at 4 starts right now.
Newly released audio calls for help after an Atlanta police officer crashes into a home. Hear the calls from concerned citizens just ahead. The mother of Tiffany Foster goes to the stand as she shared what she knows about her daughter's murder, the disturbing details she told the court. But first, a military device feared to be explosive prompts an emergency response at a Postal Service processing center. Thanks so much for joining us today for Fox 5 News at 4. I'm Christine Spiro. This happened this morning at a Postal Service facility in South Fulton, and that's where we find Fox 5's Deidre Dukes with the latest on this story. So what happened, Deidre?
That's right, Christina. We've been following what is a developing story all day. It started early this morning when South Fulton Police and the Atlanta Police Department's bomb squad responded here to this United States Postal Service facility here on Villanova Drive in the city of South Fulton. There was an evacuation here. Employees evacuated and traffic stopped along this stretch. The area cleared after an employee here at this location reported the discovery of a possible explosive device. Now, just after noon, a spokesman with the city of South Fulton reported that the police had confirmed that the suspicious device found here earlier today was in fact not an explosive device. They initially thought it was an explosive device, reporting that just after noon, but within the past hour or so, they did contact the news outlets here and said that after further evaluation by the Atlanta Police Department bomb squad and Dobbins Air Reserve Base, officials determined that the device was not an explosive, that the device was determined to be a military ordinance. So at around 10 a.m., police told us that the possible device had been